It's almost become cliche, but the world changed on September 11th, 2001. Our country changed forever. I'm John Hook. I'm a journalist by profession, but today I'm here as a fellow citizen of Arizona. Do you remember how you felt when terrorists attacked America? We were all stunned, shocked, and angry. But sadly, with time, the impact has faded for many of us. This report brings it all back and spells out an unfortunate role that Arizona played in the events of 9/11. Arizona is mentioned 59 times in this report. As you probably remember, some of the pilots that hijacked the airplanes learned to fly here in our state. The 9/11 report explains that mistakes were made in the intelligence community that might have prevented the tragedy. Many pieces of information weren't shared among different agencies, and in some cases they were lost in the shuffle or simply ignored. But officials in Arizona have made big changes to make sure that never happens again. This is ACTIC. It stands for the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, essentially a clearinghouse for information. This place and this approach did not exist prior to 9/11. Other states are scrambling to create similar centers, but ours is here and it's working. The Arizona Department of Public Safety is ultimately in charge of this center, but law enforcement and public safety agencies from all over the state are represented here. Police officers, firefighters, public health officials, the military, the Secret Service, the FBI, and other agencies all working together to manage, process, and share information that is acquired.
The Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, I think it's largely a success story because of the sharing of information. When we gather information intelligence in the past, trying to distribute that was difficult. At the center we have state, local, and federal that are all housed together. And to share information, to get information, to make inquiries, all you have to do is get up from your desk and walk across the hall, across the corridor, and now you are face to face with another individual that you need to share that information with. I think that is a key asset to our success. And it also helps us develop trust levels that you wouldn't normally have in lines of communication like, well, the telephone.
No matter what we do for a living or where we live in the state of Arizona, we are all in this together. ACTIC wants to know when we see something that doesn't fit or doesn't feel right. Each of us knows the little world we live in better than anyone else. We know what's normal in our neighborhoods, at our workplaces, in our cities and towns, in every corner of this state. The Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center wants our eyes and ears to help protect us from the people that may want to do us harm. Something that may seem out of the ordinary or suspicious to us, when reported to ACTIC, can become an important piece of a larger puzzle. It's like connecting the dots.
It's amazing the types of information we get, and that information, once we collect it, we also analyze it. And when we analyze it from everything else that's going on throughout the state, we make the determination whether or not there's a pattern. If there is a pattern, then that's when things are usually opened up in terms of active cases. But we really have to have a starting spot or a place. And the only way to do that is for people to contact us with information. It could be a citizen. A citizen might call us and say, you know, hey, I don't know if you want to, know any of this information, but I live in an apartment house. We have people that are in and out at all hours underneath us at another apartment. There's no furniture in that apartment. I'm really suspicious because none of them work. They're sitting on the floor, they watch TV, and we don't know what's going on in this place, but something's going on. Well, that's enough information for us to at least have a detective look at and possibly follow up on. And once they follow up on that information, it could develop into an active case, or it could be just left in the intelligence base or database, and we could possibly look at it at a later date. But without the citizens' help in calling us, or without a law enforcement officer out in the field making a patrol stop, contacting us and letting us know that would have never happened. Prior to 9/11, that never existed. Now, we get calls all the time.
The professionals at ACTIC have created a tool to help us decide when something is worthy of reporting. It's called the 8 Signs of Terrorism. The idea is that terrorists need to accomplish usually 8 things or steps in order to pull off a mission. And if one of those is interrupted or made much more difficult, it's possible that their destructive mission can be stopped.
We need to get the word out to not only patrol, but the citizens, the firefighters, everybody out there who's out there on a daily basis, because they're the ones that are essentially going to stop an event from happening or catch it in one of the steps leading up to it. And if they know the signs and are aware that this is a suspicious activity, then we might be able to stop something from happening here within our own state.
Surveillance is one of the signs. During the planning phase, terrorists will often conduct surveillance on possible targets in an attempt to determine their strengths and weaknesses.
Surveillance is basically the first phase of information or intelligence gathering for the terrorist, or be it domestic or international. When they pick a possible target, they start gathering information on that target, site, or facility. This is when they start looking at the security practices, the security procedures for that site or facility. They start looking at the routes that are taken to and from that facility, primary and alternate routes. Sometimes they can use this as their escape route. They look at who's there, what time they're there, how long are they there, and things like that. They can sit outside and they can draw maps, they can take pictures, they can even get their hands on maybe a floor plan of a very high-tech facility or a military facility. What people need to know is, time-wise, when you look at the 8 steps, surveillance is the largest, it takes the longest because of the information gathered and the changing of information. It doesn't happen overnight. If you look at 9/11, now that they're finding out as they investigated and they look at everything, they realize this didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of time, and surveillance was a lot of it.
If you feel you've observed something suspicious, don't dismiss it. Report the incident. You will hear that a lot in this program. If you see something, say something. Another sign of terrorism is elicitation, or gathering information. What we need to be looking for here is someone attempting to gain specific information about a potential target. The methods of obtaining information could be face-to-face conversations, emails, phone calls, regular mail, or it could be as simple as eavesdropping on a conversation in a bar or a coffee house. Places of importance might include power and water treatment plants, schools, stadiums, hospitals, or shopping malls, or any other place that a large group of people may gather and be disrupted. If you're someone entrusted with sensitive information, you need to be aware of anyone making attempts to learn what you know. And for all of the first responders watching, signs of elicitation may present themselves during the course of your everyday duties.
For first responders, you deal with elicitation a lot. For law enforcement, it could be that person who keeps trespassing at that same water treatment facility, and you remember getting called out there a week ago or a month ago, and you're getting called out there again, and that same person is still wandering around trying to find out information or hours. Or for fire personnel, the same person keeps ending up in the wrong place, and oh, I don't feel well. And there's just different things that might indicate that that person doesn't belong there. Or they might ask a series of questions while you're responding to a call that you just might feel they don't need to know. They're asking security questions, trying to find vulnerabilities, trying to figure out different weaknesses of the site that you're at, and that's a form of elicitation right there.
The Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center wants to know if you have an encounter like these. Again, the information you provide could be an important piece of a much larger puzzle. Testing security is another sign of possible terrorist activity. This may be done by somebody walking or driving into restricted areas to observe how security or law enforcement officials respond. False alarms could be called in to test response times of first responders or to see how many police or firefighters show up. Be on the lookout for people pushing the limits and performing tests of security.
Let's be honest. If you're not badged, if you don't have the credentials, and you don't belong in certain places, you don't have the authority to be there, then why are you there? It's a simple question to ask. It's pretty straightforward. And I wouldn't be confrontational. I'd notify the proper people and try and make a difference. And we're talking to people that work at hospitals, people that work at government buildings, firefighters, police officers. We all have pretty good instincts. If we listen to those instincts, we can make a difference. And certainly those people that are testing the waters, testing that security, have no business doing that. Whether it's recreational or something more sinister, we need to find out what they're doing.
Terrorist plots and attacks require funding. This is a tough sign of terrorism to pick up on because terrorists have become very creative in how they raise, transfer, and spend money. Arizonans need to be aware of things like credit card fraud, defrauding the elderly, people asking for donations to legitimate charitable organizations but in peculiar ways, or people who use very large amounts of cash to do business. Other criminal activities such as drug dealing and money laundering can produce large amounts of untraceable money for terrorists. If this piece of the puzzle can be stopped, the potential act of terror can be stopped.
These organizations have to get money somewhere. America is a very rich country, and they're getting a lot of their money from here, and they're using it to attack us, whether they're using it to attack us here in America or they're using it to attack us in other countries. They're using our money to do it. So financing is very important. It's easy to follow the financial trail. It's easy to follow the money trail once an attack has occurred, once a criminal act has been discovered. But we can proactively follow that money trail just as easily as we can reactively follow that money trail. And so to look for these signs of finances going overseas to support terrorist activity is very important. You have to have funding to get anything that you want to do, to get explosives for these attacks to occur, to travel, just for living expenses, for training, for flight lessons, whatever it is. These groups need the money in order to carry out their attacks. And if they don't have it and they can't fund it, then it's not going to happen.
Terrorists need to acquire supplies and equipment to carry out their attacks. This is a time when paying attention to things that are out of the ordinary is crucial. They may try to obtain explosives, weapons, ammunition, harmful chemicals, or chemical equipment. Terrorists may try to impersonate law enforcement and other public safety officials by purchasing or stealing uniforms, ID badges, and equipment in an effort to blend in while acquiring supplies or executing an attack.
Acquiring supplies, if you have intentions to harm people, there's basically two options. You can either produce those items on your own, or you actually have to go out into the public. You have to go into stores, hardware stores, chemical supply companies, whatever the case may be, to actually acquire those supplies. And to do that, the people that are collecting those or acquiring these supplies are generally going to try to cover their motive and what they're doing. So they'll come up with a story that doesn't exactly match. And again, that might hit someone's instinct to say, this isn't right. I'm not sure they're telling me the whole story here, but why would someone need these particular products? It's just not adding up appropriately. So definitely, they're going to be out in the public. They're going to be in places they would not normally see public people just showing up, and their story may not add up to what they say they're going to use it for. And that's important to report to the appropriate authorities.
If you see it, say it. Actions like these need to be communicated to the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center immediately. You may be the only one who sees something like this happening. Don't dismiss it, report it. Another sign, suspicious people who don't belong. This could be someone in a workplace, a building, a neighborhood, or a business that acts suspicious. Take note of his or her behavior, unusual questions they may ask, or the statements they make. And keep in mind that police officers often respond to complaints of suspicious activity. They can check it out. And sometimes things that may seem routine in nature could be something very significant. Valid IDs are important, and it's okay to ask someone for their ID if you don't feel they belong. And it's okay to ask for a second form of ID.
If they're not doing anything wrong and the police show up to talk to them, we're going to find out right away. And there's absolutely, that's going to be dealt with very professionally by the detectives that go follow up. But we would rather do 100 people that have absolutely nothing to do with terrorism than miss the one that does have something to do with terrorism. And the fact that we may have had information about them and could have prevented them from continuing with their targeting and carrying out a heinous act against our society. So people need to watch, listen, learn, contact the police department. Don't think anything is trivial and should not be reported. Anything that seems suspicious needs to be reported to us. We'll follow up, we'll conduct the investigations, we'll do what's necessary to prove or disprove that this information was terrorism related or was just totally innocent questioning.
Before carrying out the final operation or plan, terrorists typically conduct dry runs or trial runs of their plan. A dry run consists of putting people into position and moving them around, acting out the plan without actually committing the terrorist act. In a state like ours, rehearsals or dry runs can happen anywhere.
So what we need to do is just be aware of what's going on around us at all times and understand that many times what's going to happen is going to be rehearsed right before our very eyes. And if we're just a little bit aware of what's going on around us, we're going to be able to pick up on those signs. And if that information can be reported to ACTIC, it's the kind of thing that we can organize quickly and begin to take some measures that will mitigate any problem that could occur.
There's no specific order to these 8 signs of terrorism, but this one obviously comes last: the deploying of assets or getting into position to actually commit the terrorist act. Deploying assets is placing people, equipment, and supplies at or near the target to begin the attack. If you see this suspicious activity, this may be the last opportunity you have to report it.
When looking at this final step from a law enforcement or a public safety perspective, this is without a doubt the most dangerous time that we could be called upon action. We just don't know what's going to happen on this incident, but we are the ones that have to approach the threat. As a citizen, this is your last opportunity to make that phone call or to observe something that just doesn't quite fit. Something's not right. But without a doubt, all of us are going to have to work together on this if we want to survive.
So those are the 8 signs of terrorism, the tools to use to help you notice when things aren't right in your world. They are vague guidelines, but they should help all of us be more aware of our surroundings.
In the same way that we encourage people to be alert to burglaries and auto thefts and suspicious people in their neighborhoods or around their businesses, we've got to add a new dimension to people's awareness and alertness. And the kinds of things that are pointed out by the 8 steps are exactly what's needed to raise that awareness.
This is going to be new. It's going to be new for the police and fire, public safety officials, and the citizens are going to hear a lot more about it. And we're going to need them to play a role in it because they are a part of that community. There are good sets of eyes and ears out there. They see these things. It starts with information. So working together, we can be responsible by protecting our privacy rights and our issues, and help us all working together to manage that information. Why? Because we need it in order to protect ourselves.
You know, people ask me, is there something to be concerned about? Is this all just a hoax? If you look around the world, around our country, and the things that are happening, does that answer your question? When I was in Iraq, they caught a terrorist from a cell, and he made a very profound statement that has stuck with me ever since. He told the interrogators, he said, you know, me as a terrorist, I only have to get lucky once. You have to be lucky all the time. So when we sit back and ask ourselves, do we have something to worry about? Good question.
For the public safety professionals watching right now, ACTIC would like you to contact your terrorism liaison officer within your agency to report anything you see out there in the field. And for the rest of the citizens of this state, the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center would like to hear from us directly. Please call 1-877-2SAVE-AZ or 1-877-272-8329. If you don't remember that number and feel you have some information that would help, please contact your local law enforcement agency and ask them to pass it on to ACTIC. The events of September 11, 2001 brutally took the lives of many Americans and ruined so many more. Let's all do our part to ensure nothing like it ever happens again. Thanks for watching.